This meeting of the Carson City Historic Resources Commission for Thursday, January 9th, 2020 at the Community Center Sierra Room to order. Danielle, can you call the roll?
Chairperson Drews.
Here.
Vice Chair Darney. Commissioner Block. I'm sorry. Vice Chair Darney. Again.
He's not here.
Oh, he's not. Okay, sorry. Commissioner Block. Commissioner Hayes.
No.
Commissioner Schmitter.
Here.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Here.
Commissioner Spielda.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you, Danielle. Next item is public comment. Members of the public who wish to address the commission may approach the podium at this time to speak on matters relevant to or within the authority of the Historic Resources Commission, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this public comment portion of the agenda. Is there any public comment?
Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, Aaron West, I'm the CEO of the Nevada Builders Alliance. And I guess here to give a little update, so kind of chatted with a couple of you. Everybody's kind of seen the progress on the bank saloon. And we're pretty excited. It was a bit of a feat, but we finally got the structural engineer satisfied. And so the structure of the shell has been, I guess, confirmed. And so now we're moving on to the next phase, which is, and as a function of that, obviously a whole new roof diaphragm system. And we actually have roofing installed now. So we're actually dried in, which is a huge help. That first snowstorm played hell with us. So roof's on, we're dried in from that standpoint. And now we'd like to, we're moving on to wrapping up the shell, the exterior shell. And some of you that I've had a chance to talk with know that as we went through this process, we did determine that our best course of action for the windows was actually to restore them essentially in place. So we are keeping the original window frames. We will be swapping out the glass. But from the exterior, they will appear as they did originally. And we'll just restore them in place. They will be fixed because of the lean of the wall. If you've seen some of our comments in the media, it's been pretty interesting. We're trying to address that 13-inch skew in that wall. But so I think that's based on the conversation that we had when we came through with the project. Obviously, windows were a big piece of that. So we're excited to announce that we are able to keep the windows and restore those in place. And then the front, we've been kind of going back and forth because we all know that what was there certainly was not historic. And so I want to thank all of you, but Michelle really did a lot of digging for us and found a lot of old photos that we could kind of use to take some design ideas from. And then even comments about, as we looked at, we talked about trying to maybe do something modern over there. We were looking at doing an operable wall system along the front. For many reasons, we actually decided to move away from that and go to just a more conventional storefront. But we also like to kind of clean it up and make it something that'll be a little more timeless going forward, and really play off of what we have planned on the inside. So what's on the screen now is and I apologize, it's a little crude. We could have had it colored and so forth, but just in the interest of time, and I think based on the previous decision and recommendation, probably doesn't require any additional action from you guys, but I definitely just wanted to keep you in the loop on it. So we're envisioning some pretty significant glass panels, a little rework of the front door. As you can see, we're just trying to keep all the lines very symmetrical, and we will be incorporating a glass panel into the door as well. But I think it'll really make it pretty impressive from the inside with the amount of light that'll come into the storefront, and also the visual presentation from the street. So certainly happy to, I know it's not a hearing, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions, but just wanted to kind of give you guys an update, let you know this is it's taken us a little bit to get here, but we're very excited about this and we're ready to move full blast, and we should have this thing dried in pretty quickly.
Thanks, Aaron. Is there you guys have any questions or, Hope,
No.
when we originally heard this, were we I wasn't at the meeting, and I'm just wondering what the resolution was regarding coming back to us and bringing windows and things like that.
No, I don't believe there were conditions that required continued review. But my recollection is, and I didn't look this up for the meeting, but there was sort of the window that could be lifted up to have a free air, and there were conditions put on that window about obscuring the lower portion of the window to sort of replicate a wall and to maintain the storefront look. So those were all conditions, but there wasn't a requirement for it to come back. Since this is a modification, I would anticipate that we would have an HRC application for the revision. Now, this may be something where when the chair looks at it, you find that's consistent with what the approval was and that you're comfortable with it.
Okay.
I thought, and maybe Don recalls, and I think it was captured in the minutes, that the final look of those doors was going to go in front of Mike. Okay.
Oh, I didn't have my mic on. I don't recall. This wasn't an agendized item, so Aaron had provided me with the slides, so I knew he was going to speak under public comment, so I wanted to include it to illustrate where his thinking has evolved to, but I didn't come prepared to revisit the entire application.
And for the record, Aaron West, again, if I could just clarify, I should have pointed out that, in the original conversation that we had, we really did envision as much, if not more, glass with that operable wall system. But the one condition that was put on there, that we maintain 18 to 24 inches along that bottom to maintain the look of the storefront. So what you see here is we've actually stuck with that 24 inches. So we've gone to the high side of that so that we have that storefront along the bottom. And then I will tell you, the part of what kind of drove some of this is, we had to put a structural frame on the inside of that first bay in order to satisfy the structural engineer. And as a function of that, our openings came in a little tighter than we expected. And so that drove some of the conversation. But I hope you'll agree that this meets the spirit of what was discussed and kind of the period.
Thanks, Aaron. Go ahead and submit, and it sounds like the chairman can administratively look at it, so.
Right on. Thank you, guys.
I definitely appreciate it, because what we were looking for was a three-part storefront, and you brought that back to us, so thank you.
Aaron, she's trying to be nice. She's the only one that wanted that.
Thanks, Aaron. Good job. Is there any other public comment on non-agendized items? If not, we'll move to item C, approval of minutes from the November 14th, 2019 meeting.
I'm glad she did that work. That's better than that.
Is there more public comment? Okay, we have minutes from the November 14th meeting. Have members had a chance to review those? And if so, I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Minutes for November 14th, 1919 are approved. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Modification of the agenda. Agenda management notice. Items on the agenda may be taken out of order. Public body may combine two or more agenda items for consideration, and the public body may remove an item from the agenda or delay discussion relating to an item on the agenda at any time. Hope, is there?
Yeah, let's go ahead and remove item 8E5. That would be the review of 1614 North Curry Street. I put a memo in the packet, but we're not prepared to review that.
Okay, I drove by that and I remember 10 years ago them coming before us. So somehow, I think that's been granted an open space use assessment previously. So we'll have to research it and see. But I think what we discussed about adding it to the district's probably the best way to go for future
Actually,
assessments.
why don't we go ahead and leave it on the agenda, and I'll just brief the rest of the commissioners on the situation.
Okay. Meeting items, item E1, HRC-2019-009, for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors regarding a request for an historic tax deferment on property zoned residential office, RO, located at 311 West 3rd Street, APN 003-124-01. Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request for a historic tax deferment consistent with Municipal Code 21.02.020. Per the 1980 survey, the home was constructed in 1869. The historic significance derives from the association with George Washington Gale Ferris Jr., the inventor of the Ferris wheel. A site visit was conducted on December 27, 2019, and the site was found to be in good condition. Alterations have been subject to review and approval by the HRC, and staff is recommending approval for the building only. I want to just, in the past, we haven't been specific about what portions of a property should be subject to the deferral. Our tax assessor actually has new software now, and in looking at the deferrals that are in place, he has been requesting that we be more specific on what parts of the property should be subject to the deferral. So for example, if you have a house that's historic but a garage that's not, then the house would receive the historic deferral, but the garage would not receive it. So going forward, you'll see more specificity in the motions that we're recommending for you to consider.
Thanks, Hope. Luke, questions?
I have a question on that. So if the whole lot is the setting of that historic property, wouldn't that be considered as part of the tax-deferred property?
What you could do in this case, because it's a site as opposed to an architectural style, it's an association with a person, you could say the building and the land. But for example, if there was a brand-new garage that was built a year ago, we wouldn't want to include that in the deferral.
Any other commission member questions of Hope? Any commission member comments? Is there any public comment on this item?
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. The garage type situation that might be a modern part of the building, if there were understanding that there could be a historical base or a foundation from another building, past tense in the sense of historical placement, I mean, it could be below the new structure. Could then they find that as the historical basis for having that tax deal carry over to the new structure, or at least ignoring the new structure and allowing for tax deal for the base or foundational? If there is ground between.
One of the considerations of this commission is that any alteration on the property must be compatible with the historical character. So if a building was removed obviously the commission realizes there's different criteria that causes a site to be considered as a historic site. It can be the architecture, it can be craftsmanship, it can be association with people or events. So if it was something that was an association with people or events, as was just referenced, it may still be considered to be qualify for the deferral. If it was something where it was a function of the craftsmanship and the craftsmanship had been removed, except for maybe the foundation, unless the foundation was a subject of the craftsmanship, I think it would be a hard argument to make.
Thank you very much.
Is there any other public comment? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval of HRC 2019-0009 for the building and land only based on the findings that the request is consistent with the design guidelines for the Historic District and the Secretary of the Interior standards as noted in the staff report.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor? Oh, Michelle, you have a
So-
question?
Don, did you say building only? I thought I heard,
He said inland.
oh, okay, okay.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item E2, HRC 2019-0010 for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors regarding a request for an historic tax deferment on property zoned downtown mixed use DTMU located at 112 North Curry Street, APN 003-215-02. Hope.
Thank you. This also is a request for a historic tax deferment consistent with Municipal Code 21.02.020. Per the 1980 survey, the home was constructed prior to 1875. The structure exhibits thick East Lake forms and, detailing in its design. A site visit was conducted on December 27, 2019, and the site was found to be in good condition. Alterations have been subject to review and approval by the HRC, and the staff is recommending approval for the primary building and the wrought iron fence only.
Commission member questions?
Yeah, there was a garage that was built in 1994, I believe, that would be excluded.
Correct. So the motion should read for the primary building and the wrought iron fence only. The garage is detached in the rear, I believe.
Wouldn't we also add the land as we did in the previous one, though, too?
If you'd like to, that would be fine.
Just to be really picky, what about the curbing underneath the wrought iron fence?
That would be fine if that's what you, I was looking at improvements, which is why I omitted land in the sort of the flat work. I guess the flat work is an improvement, so.
Well, the assessor would normally break out the improvements, correct?
Yes, so actually, with this new approach, it's actually was very interesting, because in pulling the assessor's records, it's confusing, because you might see something that was built in, we'll say 1875, and you'll see all these other improvements from 1875, but it doesn't seem like they would have been 1875. And what happened was a previous assessor, when he had to identify a date for other improvements, and he didn't know it, he assigned the date of the original building.
That's
So we
really
don't have good
important.
data on
us
all
to
the
know that.
improvements unless they're fairly recent.
Is there any other commission member questions of Hope? Is there any public comment?
Susie Block. Do I have to hold it? Okay. There's a 1867 ice house in the back. I think that should be included with that deferment also.
$1867 Ice House?
Yes. directly behind the building. Yeah, you can't see it from, yep, yep.
Hope, is there a way we can get more detail into the assessor's records on these so that we can start identifying? I know some of our surveys have additions and dates on them, but it'd be really helpful because, I mean, I'm almost thinking that on these tax deferments, we should do exceptions rather than, yeah, we could accept the modern garage and approve the rest.
Actually, if you want to, I mean, this is our first time approaching it this way because we've never been asked for this level of detail. So in this case, I think there's 3 buildings on site, the primary building, the garage, which is new, and the ice house, which isn't visible from off-site, but evidently built in 1867. So if you'd like to just exclude the garage, then that will be the recommendation that goes to the board, and then the assessor can work with that.
Okay, thanks, Susie. Any other,
Thank you. Denny French, Carson City, Nevada Chair and Board. I'm sorry, I don't think I addressed you appropriately the first time. I was so surprised I had a question. My question was in consideration of the other structure. So that was taken care of. Thank you very much.
thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead. I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval of HRC -2019-0010 for the property at 112 North Curry Street, except for the modern garage, based on the finding that the request is consistent with the design guidelines for the Historic District and the Secretary of Interior standards as noted in the staff report.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Motion and a second, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item, E3, 2019-00000155. For possible action, discussion and possible action regarding requests for replacement of a lawn area with rock and repair of a curb located under a fence on property zoned downtown mixed use, DT-MU located at 112 North Carson Street, APN 003-215-02. Hope.
Okay, you looked at this at your last meeting, and the applicant wasn't able to attend, so you continued the item. The applicant is seeking to replace a lawn area in the front with rock as the irrigation system is compromising the building foundation. The applicant also proposes to repair the curb that is located underneath the wrought iron fence. Development Standards 5.25 provide the guidelines for landscape elements. These guidelines identify as character-defining features in the district to be a sidewalk with a planting strip between the street and the sidewalk. The planting strip would contain a row of deciduous trees or a lawn. Lots are rectangular in shape with a front setback which allows for a modestly sized front yard. And front yards are delineated by a low-profile fence with a gate and a walkway leading to the front entry. The subject property includes the front yard delineated by a low-profile fence and a walkway from the sidewalk to the front steps. The planting strip between the sidewalk and the curb exists on the north side, but has pavers in it on the east side, and there's only one tree right now in the planter on the east side. So the staff is recommending approval with the preservation of the character-defining features, specifically the existing walkway to the front entry, the preservation of the low-profile fence that delineates the front yard, and the proposed land. So with the preservation of those elements, staff finds that the request will meet the guidelines and is recommending approval. The HRC, just to remind you, I think you wanted clarification on the method that was going to be used to repair the curb. And I think Susie Block is probably prepared to speak to this application. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Thanks, Hope. Any questions of Hope? Susie, come on back up.
Okay.
You need to introduce yourself again for the record.
Susie Block. And
Yeah, I think last time we just wondered how you were, if you were gonna remove and replace the full curb or what kind of repairs were.
okay, so right now it's concrete and it's crumbling and falling apart. So it's going to be replaced with the exact same material, concrete. It is painted in places. We probably won't paint it again, but it's just going to repair it so that it doesn't, so can continue to hold up the fence.
So are you gonna just put a form on top of it and pour concrete?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not gonna remove, I mean, it's pretty bad, but you've got like what would be a lead sleeve, which is going into the concrete where the cast iron would
Right.
sit in.
Right.
So you're trying to keep that?
Yes.
Okay,
We want it to look the same, but not all crumbly and falling apart, yes.
okay.
Any other questions? Is there any public comment on this item? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve HRC 209-00000155 based on the finding that the request is consistent with the design guidelines for the historic district and the Secretary of Interior standards as noted in the staff report.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is E4 for possible, or HRC-2019-0011 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors regarding a request for an historic tax deferment on property zoned single-family 6,000 SF6 located at 602 West Spear Street, APN 003-243-04. Hope.
This is a request for the historic tax deferment consistent with Carson City Municipal Code 21.02.020. Per the 1980 survey, the home was constructed in 1875. The structure is a vernacular version of the Greek Revival style with some East Lake decorative influences. A site visit was conducted on December 27, 2019, and the site was found to be in good condition. Alterations have been subject to review and approval by the HRC, and the staff is recommending approval for the primary building only. Oh, I should mention Susie Block is present and is the applicant.
Thanks, Hope. Any questions of Hope?
Is this one that we should accept the garage rather than just the primary? Because
No, the garage had a more recent construction date per the assessor's records, and going forward, I'll provide you with the assessor's records. It'll be easier. But I looked that up, and I specifically did not include the garage.
The list of alterations, Luann, shows 2004 for the garage construction.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. Yes, I think it would be fair. I believe, and I'd ask the applicant to verify that the only outbuilding, if you will, is the garage. But I think there is a shed in the rear, and that's not a historic structure. Okay.
I would say not.
Okay, so I think with the exclusion of the outbuildings, including the garage and the shed. And the fence is new, so I think the fence as well would be excluded. There's a new picket fence and also a new brick wall on the property. There's a lot of recent improvements on this property. This may be one where it's easier to say the primary building with the land.
I just want to say that the house looks great. The painting and all the windows that you've done look really amazing.
Are there any other commission member questions? Comments? Is there any public comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
All right, I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval of HRC-2019-0011 for the primary building and land only based on the finding that the request is consistent with the design guidelines for the Historic District and the Secretary of Interior standards as noted in the staff report.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item E5, HRC-2019-0013. For possible action, discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors regarding a request for an historic tax deferment on property zone residential office, RO, located at 1614 North Curry Street, APN 001-155-02. Hope.
Okay, I don't have a slide on this one because I'm not recommending action, but I do want to kind of brief the commission because it was really an interesting situation that we're still working to resolve. This is a property that was built in 1910, and it is not in the historic district, but it does have a tax deferral. So that sort of brought up the question, well, how does it have a tax deferral if we can't verify it will be maintained in a historic state because it's not part of the district? And in rereading the municipal code regarding the historic district, there's also this thing called a historic place that is separate than a historic district. And a historic place can be created by resolution and per the code by either the commission or the board, although I've sat with the DA's office and we've concluded the commission should not have the authority to create a historic place through resolution because it's not within your charge when we read what you're authorized to do in the code. So this is one where I did go back to the 1983 minutes of the board to determine what the justification was to grant the deferral back in 83 and 84, and could not find a record on this particular property. I found records on other properties, but not this one. So I talked to the chair and I talked to the assessor, and we do have time because any deferral wouldn't go into effect until July. So I'm surprised to discover this creature called a historic place that could be created by resolution. And that was interesting to me. And secondly, I'm trying to figure out with the DA's office, and I've spoken with the chair about this, how to handle a deferment request for a property outside the district, but that does indeed, seem to have retained its historic character. So for those reasons, because I'm not sure how to resolve this quite yet, and because I think we have some time, I am recommending a continuation of this item to your March meeting.
One of those solutions we came up with too was to have them come before us and we can annex that building into the district, in which case it would be under our purview to grant the deferment. So we have some time to do that, and I think
But
we can move on from that.
would we, then that would open it up also down the road for others. So we might be better served looking at, expanding our district boundaries at that point.
Even if we did an annex to the historic district, would we have to do an addendum to the historic district and send out to the keeper and all that?
This would be the Carson City Historic District, not the National Register District.
Yes.
So.
And you can
just
have
annex
satellite
across the
properties in the district. We do have satellite properties that are not contiguous to the district boundaries, but are within the district. You want to do a motion to continue it?
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion to continue.
I'll move that we continue agenda item E4, file number HRC 2019-0011.
13. E5.
E5,
We're one ahead of you.
HRC 2019-0013.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will continue this item. Next item, E6, HRC-2019-014. For possible action, discussion and possible action regarding a request for the addition of lights mounted on a fence on property zone residential office, RO, located at 309 West King Street, APN 003-216-0-13.
Okay, the commission looked at this property at your last meeting, and at the last meeting, you requested that the lights be removed from the fence. After the meeting, Mr. Mason met with me and explained how dark it is out there and asked if he could keep just the two corner lights. He has removed all the other lights from the fence. I took this picture today to show that those two corner lights are there, but that portion of the fence is not in front of the house. And I think the reason why I recommended, and I think the reason why you all denied the lighting was because it was adversely affecting the primary views of the building. But given that the only lights that would be retained would not be in front of the building because they're just offset because of the extension of the fence, I could find that would be consistent with the design standards if it was limited to just the corners. Thank you. Oh, Mr. Mason is present.
Are there any commission member questions of Hope? Are there any commission member questions of Mr. Mason? Don, this was one that,
I was here.
yeah, that you had a lot to say about, or you,
And I think the way he's approached it and what he's making a request is something that it's taken away from the front, it's no longer taken away from the front of the building. And I went by there too, and it does get a little, we need to get a little light in there. I'd like to have seen a different fixture, but I think the way that he's come back is something that's satisfactory to me.
are there any other commission member questions or comments? Questions of Mr. Mason?
These are all electrified? I mean, you had to run, are they solar?
Good evening, members and staff. Steve Mason, 309 West King. They are solar. I removed all of the inner lights today, and I appreciate the compromise. So
Could you put the other lights on the walkway at a lower elevation other than on the fence?
committee recommended some possible light fixtures that could be mounted on the posts inside, which I might entertain. No, those are inexpensive top cap solar lights. Does anybody need any? I have several, but one thing that has happened in meeting with Ms. Sullivan, the street light had been out on the corner that illuminates the crosswalk at Division and King. That has been remedied. So it's a little brighter around there.
Good. Any other questions or comments? Any public comments on this item? Hearing none, I'll recommend a motion.
I move to approve HRC 2019-0014 based on the findings that the request is consistent with the design guidelines for the Historic District and the Secretary of the Interior Standards as noted in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Mason. Item E7, HRC-2019-015 for possible action. Discussion and possible action to approve the Historic Resources Commission Annual Report for 2019 to be presented to the Board of Supervisors. Hope.
Okay, so I prepared the report, very similar to the format we've done in past years. The highlights of the report are you reviewed 48 projects this year. You handled the Historic Preservation Awards, and there were 4 preservation awards that were granted. I should mention of the 48 applications, 21 were handled administratively. I think your application count was up by like 10 from last year, which when we're only dealing with less than 50 is a lot. On the scavenger hunt, 15 people submitted complete answers. The scavenger hunt was not well received. The community did not like the change from the walking through the district and looking at the architecture. I think you need to go back to that. And I know I kind of spearheaded the idea about culture, but it didn't work very well. So I suggest you go back to the architectural that has been so well received in the past. And we did receive a grant, an HPF grant, to attend the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions Forum in Tacoma, Washington in July. So I believe that meeting's on July 22nd to 24th. So I'll probably get an email out to you guys pretty soon, just seeing who wants to sign up for it, because it will have to get on your calendar pretty quick. But just a reminder, that grant money will pay for your travel, will pay for your expenses, food and things like that while you're at the conference. So you won't have out-of-pocket expenses while we'll cover the hotel, things like that. So I think Mike and Michelle have both gone, and I think both can speak to it themselves, but I think they both found it well worthwhile and really educational. I did not include anything in the annual report on a work program just because we are really, really, really busy. And I think with reviewing applications just in general, I don't know that we can carve out extra time for proactive work programs. Thank you.
Thanks, Hope. Any questions of Hope on this item? I'll entertain a or is there any public comment on this item? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the 2019 Historic Resources Commission annual report to the Board of Supervisors as presented by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item E8, HRC-2019-016 for possible action, discussion and possible action to elect an Historic Resources Commission Chairman and Vice Chairman for the period February 2020 to January 2021. Hope. It's for possible action. In that case, yeah. I guess I'll open up nominations for chair.
Mike Giroux.
Second.
Are there any other nominations for chairman?
You have to vote yes, Mike, because it takes 4 of us to do this, just if you read this.
No, that's not true.
It says right here on this little sheet of paper that 4 people must vote, at least 4 members of the HRC.
We might have,
Wow, I could make this interesting.
we might have to move it to the next meeting.
Are there any other nominations?
No.
Nominations are closed. All in favor of Mike Drews for chairman, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I guess I met. I'll open nominations for vice chair.
Rob Darney.
Oh, Don? I nominate Don Smith.
No, because he's not going to say no.
Yeah.
Were you at that meeting?
Yeah.
Anybody second Rob?
We needed Mike there.
Any other nominations for vice chair? We'll close the nominations. All in favor of Rob Darney for vice chair signify by saying aye.
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 Rob is our new vice chair. Okay, we'll move on to F, staff reports. F1, discussion only.
Okay, first I need to apologize. There was some confusion. We had a revised agenda for you to give an update on Adele's, and somehow that is not the agenda that's in your packet, so I apologize for that. Having said that, let me tell you what I know about Adele's. No, I didn't even bring pictures, sorry. Okay, in October, it was in October, the property owners sought permission from the Community Development Director to demolish the building. There's a section in our downtown mixed-use district standards that says if a building's over 50 years old, even though it's not part of the historic district, so it's not under your purview, but by virtue of being in the downtown mixed use and being over 50 years old, it gets extra scrutiny if there's a request to demolish. And there are certain findings that need to be met before it can be allowed to be demolished. One of those findings is that the repair of the building is essentially economically not feasible, and that there's been no history of neglect of the building. It was based on that finding that they received permission to demolish the building. Having said that, what the code says is very much like in the historic district, when you get permission to demolish a building, you may not demolish that building until you have permits in hand for your new construction project. So that building cannot be demolished until there are permits for redevelopment of that site. Jackson's, who owns the property next door, sought permission to expand onto that property. Their expansion will involve the removal of that building, and their expansion will include essentially a parking lot. They'll have a dumpster over there. The driveway connections will stay as is right now. They'll have some landscaping. The Planning Commission approved Jackson's request. At the time of the Planning Commission meeting, Frank Lepori, who's representing Jackson's, offered the Adele's building to anyone who would like to move it for free. He does want it moved by March 1. The Historic Society is pursuing, which is a private nonprofit. There's been a lot of confusion in the press between the Historic Commission, which is, you are the Historic Commission, you're a regulatory body, and the Historic Society is a private nonprofit. The Historic Society is pursuing a fundraiser with the idea that they will make funds available to someone interested in moving this building in exchange for a covenant, essentially, to maintain the exterior of the building as a historic resource. Absent that, the building could be moved and not maintained as a historic resource. So that is what I know about Adele's. And I did not have a chance to get the tally of the administrative approval since your last meeting because we've just been super busy with business license, but I can email you that information. And that's the end of my report.
I had made a call to Hope about that building. And, we tend to throw away some things like the, V&T building, You can go see it at a mall in California somewhere if you're interested. And I thought of the Lake Mansion in Reno. And what they did with the Lake Mansion is they took that building because they felt, the city of Reno felt there was enough significance there, that they took that and initially it was placed on the site at the corner of Virginia Street at the convention center. And they did a pretty nice job. And then, of course, when they expanded, they relocated it again. And I just look at this as an opportunity because there's parts of that building that aren't so great, where the apartments are, but it's really a beautiful building. And it's one that could be probably used in some significant way. So what I'd like to do is see if there's not a way to approach Carson City and the Board of Supervisors. If there's a place that they could participate, kind of like put your money where your mouth is, to save this building and then turn it into a useful city building, I don't know, a small museum, whatever. But I looked at some sites in town that maybe they could trade for, that we could make this a building of significance again. And rather than see it go into private enterprise, we look at so many buildings within our district that are in disrepair that probably things aren't going to happen until they fall down. And we don't have a lot of time, But if there'd be an appetite by us to move forward, because and I agreed with Hope, I read the one article in the paper, the letter to the editor that was kind of slamming us. And that's why I'm glad that Hope is clarifying the difference between the two groups. But I think we should make some type of attempt to save that building.
Without having the item agendized, Tom, I don't have any problem reaching out to the Historical Society and offering to help them broker that kind of a deal.
I'd just like to see Carson City get involved in trying to save one of these buildings and work to find a place to put it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but I think to start that, I mean, I remember when we did, I guess it was when the Nugget, or Cactus Jacks wanted to tear down the building and make a parking lot. It was a joint effort. It was the Historic Commission and a number of people who met with the city, met with property owners and found a solution. And, I think we can talk to the Historical Society, see if they would like our help as a liaison with the city and maybe get some discussion started anyway. I mean, I don't,
We have 45 days.
Yeah.
it's a short window.
Okay, since this isn't agendized, I think if the other two commissioners want to say something on it, obviously I don't want to stop you from that, but you won't be in a position to take action. And I apologize for that because we did have a revised agenda and I'm not certain what happened. But I can work with the chair and determine if we need to have a special meeting so that you can formally talk about this and take action if that's of interest.
Hope, in the interest of time, couldn't we ask for a time slot on the Board of Supervisors meeting, get on their agenda for a short joint meeting to discuss this? Again, since we only have 45 days.
And I'll talk to the chair because you as a group can't reach a consensus even on this because it's not on your meeting agenda. And so I'll meet privately with the chair outside this meeting. And it may be that you have a very quick meeting just to discuss this item, or the chair feels like he has enough direction that he will engage in conversations. But at this point, we can't that may be where you end up, but we can't make that decision right now.
I understand we can't, but if someone close to planning could discuss this with maybe the mayor, and he asked for that to be placed on the agenda and to invite us, we don't have to go through that process. Am I correct?
If the mayor were to invite the chair, that would be an option. The chair also will be going to the February board meeting to give the annual report. And this might be something that the chair includes as something that's been brought to the attention of the commission. And it may also be an opportunity for the chair to better identify the difference between the Historic Society and the Historic Resource Commission.
So my comments are that I understand it's economically not feasible to rehab the building. But to determine if the building is significant enough to preserve and for the city to take on, we would have to take a look at the amount of historic fabric in place, and we would go through a determination like we would normally do.
There's nothing stopping any of us from joining the Historical Society and jumping in with that organization to discuss these things. So I think that might be the best. I mean, I think that's probably the safest approach right now in terms of non-agendized items and further discussion is, let's go that way, Hope and I can talk and try to figure out other ways. But I think for something immediate, I think that might be the quickest route to start moving in that direction.
Just to give you an idea, I had a meeting with at DRAC in Dayton last night. That's the Dayton Advisory council. And as I'm pulling out in the dark and I'm at the intersection, I'm looking at that brand-new sign they put over one of the establishments in downtown Dayton. It says bar, and that came right off of Adele's. And I went, gosh, why do we do this?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I think it'd be safe to just end the discussion now, but I understand that. Any other, you guys elected me.
You also voted for yourself.
Any other commission reports, comments, future agenda items? Any public comment?
Great, just to leave this on. Hi, Denny French, Chair and Board. I'm very glad that Adele's came up tonight, and I'm very pleased that you're all taking into consideration. I was considering the land next to Jack in the Box there where the old wheel house had been and doing some study about that. That would take a lot more than 45 days to negotiate any movements. And since there are people working on this, and I'm not directly relating to their movements, I know a lot of people have found a significant reason to consider it worth keeping and finding a home here. I think it's a shame it had to be moved, and it couldn't just be reconsidered or reset where it's on that property. It's a great addition to the street visually and historically. So thank you all very much. It's been a great opportunity to watch y'all in action. And I hope to get back and not be too much of pain, but this is a great opportunity. Thank you very much for tonight.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
We're adjourned unanimously.